I walked into that dining room, and I knew something was wrong the second I saw the extra chairs. 12 places set. 12. My son Derek had never invited 12 people to anything I was attending. Last Thanksgiving, it was just the three of us and his wife's mother. The Christmas before that, I ate alone in the kitchen while his business partners used the dining room. So 12 chairs meant something. Something I wasn't supposed to see coming. But I saw it. I saw it in the way Patricia kept glancing at the door. I saw it in the way Derek's assistant, that kid with the nervous hands, kept checking his watch. I saw it in the fresh flowers on the table, orchids, expensive ones, the kind you order for important occasions. And in the crystal glasses that sparkled like they'd never been used. And in the silverware arranged just so, each fork aligned with mathematical precision. This wasn't a family dinner. This was a staged Dad. Derek came out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. He was wearing a vest tonight, dark blue with silver buttons. His hair was freshly cut. His shoes were polished. He looked like he was about to give a TED Talk. Son, come in, come in. Let me take your coat. I shrugged out of my jacket. It was the same one I'd worn for 8 years. Brown corduroy with leather patches on the elbows. Patricia had offered to buy me a new one for Christmas. I'd said no. I liked this one. It had history. Derek took it with 2 fingers, held it at arm's length, and passed it to the nervous assistant without looking at him. Hang this up, will you? The assistant scurried away. You look good, Dad. Did you do something different with your hair? Same hair I've had since 1982. He laughed. Too loud. Too quick. Right. Well, come on. Everyone's waiting. Everyone. That word hit me like a fist. I followed him down the hallway. He'd redecorated since my last visit. New artwork on the walls. Abstract stuff in shades of gray and red, splattered across canvas like someone had emptied a paint bucket. I didn't understand it. I didn't need to. The price tag on the frame probably cost more than my car. The dining room opened up in front of me, and I stopped walking. 12 faces turned to look at me. I recognized some of them. Harold Vance, the CEO of Vance Industries. Margaret Chin from the bank. Neil Patterson, Derek's lawyer. The rest were strangers, but they all had the same look. The look of people who'd been told they were about to see something interesting. Derek put his hand on my shoulder. Everyone, this is my father. Frank. A murmur of greetings. I nodded. I smiled. I kept my back straight and my shoulders square, the way I'd been trained decades ago. Frank, Harold Vance said, extending his hand. Derek's told me so much about you. Has he now? Derek's hand tightened on my shoulder. Just a fraction. Just enough for me to feel it. Dad? Why don't you sit here? He guided me to a chair at the middle of the table. Not the head. Not the foot. Middle. Surrounded. Boxed and I Saturday Patricia appeared with a bottle of wine. She poured for everyone except me. I noticed. I was supposed to notice. The empty glass in front of me was part of the script. Red or white, Frank? She asked, holding up both bottles. I don't drink, Patricia. You know that. Oh, that's right. I forgot. 22 years in the military. And you never touched a drop. The way she said it made it sound like a punchline. 2 of the strangers chuckled. They were the kind of people who chuckled at anything. As long as the hostess was laughing. I looked at my empty glass and said nothing. Derek took his seat at the head of the table. He tapped a spoon against his water glass, and the room went quiet. I watched him do it. I watched the way he commanded attention without even trying. It was a gift I'd given him, though he never knew it. The way I'd given him everything else. Before we eat, Derek said, I want to say a few words. He paused. Let the silence stretch. He was good at that. He'd learned that from me too. Tonight, we're here to celebrate. As many of you know, my company just closed a merger worth over $40 million. $40 million. And I couldn't have done it without the support of the people around this table. Polite applause. Patricia beamed, but I also want to take a moment to honor someone else. Derek's gaze shifted to me. My father. My stomach tightened. I knew that look. It was the same look he'd had when he was 6 years old, and he'd hidden my car keys just to watch me search for them. Dad, I know we haven't always seen eye to eye. You had your way of doing things. I had mine. And I'll admit, I didn't always understand you. The choices you made. The life you chose to live. He paused again. Drama. All dramaed. But I want everyone here to know that I love you. And I'm proud of you. And tonight, I want to set the record straight. He reached under the table and pulled out a manila folder. Thick. Heavy. The kind of folder that meant business. Patricia reached for it. But he shook his head and opened it himself. Over the past few months, I've been doing some research, just trying to learn more about my father's life, the parts he never talked about. He pulled out a single sheet of paper, and what I found was interesting. The room was silent. 12 people holding their breath. Derek cleared his throat and read from the paper. Frank Sullivan, enlisted in the United States Army at age 18. Served 6 years. Honorable discharge. Rank, specialist. Assignment, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Occupation, supply clerk. He looked up at me. Supply clerk, Dad. 6 years of inventory management. That's the military career you built your whole identity on. I said nothing. 6 years, Dad. You spent 6 years counting boxes and signing forms. And then you got out and did what? Nothing for 40 years. The silence was so thick I could feel it pressing against my ears. I'm not trying to embarrass you, Derek said. His voice was soft now, sympathetic. The voice of a son who was so concerned about his poor, pathetic father. I'm just trying to get everyone to understand. The stories you told me growing up. The adventures, the heroism, they weren't real. They were just stories. The silver-haired man, Harold Vance, leaned forward. Derek, is this really necessary? This is family business, Harold. I need to clear the air. My father and I have had some misunderstandings over the years. I want everyone to see the real picture. I looked at Derek. Really looked at him. At the man I'd raised. At the son I'd given everything to. At the boy who'd grown up believing he had something to prove. That I had given him that belief. I knew that, but I'd never intended for it to curdle into this. Son, I said, are you done? He blinked. What? Are you finished with your presentation? The room shifted. People exchanged glances. Derek's carefully constructed moment was wobbling. Dad, I'm just trying to humiliate me. In front of your friends. Your business partners. Your lawyer. I stood up slowly. My knees ached. They always did. But I stood up straight. You set this up, Derek. You planned this. The extra chairs. The wine I don't drink. The folder you spent months putting together. You wanted to show everyone what a failure your father is. That's exactly what this is. I looked around the table. At Harold Vance. At Margaret Chun. At Neil Patterson. At the strangers who'd come to watch the show. You all came here thinking you were attending a celebration. But you're attending an execution. And I'm the one on the gallows. Derek's face was red. You're twisting this. You wanted to prove you're better than me. That you've surpassed me. That the old man is nothing but a has-been who spent his life counting boxes. I walked around the table. Slowly. Deliberately. Past the crystal glasses and the silver forks and the orchids that had cost more than my rent for the month. You know what the problem is? Derek, you never asked me who I really am. I know who you are. You're a supply clerk who retired at 30 and never did anything else. I stopped next to Harold Vance. He was looking at me differently now. The smirk had faded. Something else was taking its place. Something I recognized. Harold, I said. When we spoke on the phone 3 weeks ago, you told me the merger was solid. That Derek had done his homework. That he'd earned his place at the table. Did you mean that? Harold's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. How do you know we spoke on the phone? Because I'm the one you spoke to. The room went silent. I heard Patricia's sharp intake of breath. I heard the nervous assistant drop something in the kitchen. I heard Derek's chair scrape back as he stood up. What are you talking about? Derek demanded that I turn to face him. Your merger, son. The deal you're celebrating tonight. Do you know who the primary investor is? He shook his head. It's a trust. An offshore trust. I've never met the principal. You've met him every time you looked in the mirror. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my wallet. Old leather. Cracked. I opened it and removed a single piece of paper. Laminated. Folded. I'd carried it for 8 years. I held it up. It was a stock certificate. Issued by Derek's company. Dated 8 years ago. Registered to a trust called the Sundown Trust. And at the bottom, in small print, the name of the trustee. Frank Sullivan. I'm the principal, I said. I'm the money. I've been your silent partner since day one. The color drained from Derek's face so fast I thought he might pass out. You're lying. I'm not lying. Check the records. Call Neil. He's been my lawyer for 15 years. Neil Patterson had turned white. He sat frozen in his chair, eyes fixed on the table. Is this true, Neil? Derek's voice cracked. Is this true? Neil licked his lips. Derek, I can explain. Explain what that my father has been running my company this whole time. I haven't been running it, I said. I've been funding it. There's a difference. I gave you the capital. I opened the doors. I made the introductions. But you made the decisions. You built the company. I just gave you the chance to build it. You gave me a chance, Derek laughed. It was a ragged, desperate sound. You gave me a chance by pretending to be nothing, by hiding in that pathetic apartment, wearing that pathetic jacket, eating canned soup while I was out here killing myself to succeed. I never pretended. I just didn't tell you. What's the difference? His shout echoed through the room. Patricia was crying now, silent tears running down her face. The strangers were looking anywhere but at us. Harold Vance had his hand over his mouth. I walked toward Derek. Slow. Measured. When I reached his chair, I put my hand on his shoulder. The difference, I said, is that I wanted you to make your own way. I wanted you to succeed because you were good, not because your father had money. I didn't want you to grow up in my shadow. Your shadow, he laughed again. You were nobody. You were a clerk. You didn't have a shadow. Then how did I pay for your college education? How did I buy your first car? How did I make the down payment on your first apartment? He opened his mouth, closed it. I had money, Derek. I had plenty of money. I just didn't flaunt it. I lived simply because I didn't need anything else. I had everything I needed. Everything except a son who could love me without needing to prove he was better than me. I let go of his shoulder and stepped back. 8 years ago, you came to me asking for capital. You said you had a dream. You said you just needed someone to believe in you. I believed in you. I put up $40 million. I put up more than that. I put up my faith in my son. Derek was shaking now. His hands were trembling. He looked down at the manila folder on the table, the evidence he'd gathered to destroy me, and his face crumpled. Marcus Webb, I said. Do you know who that is? Derek nodded. The banker. He approved my first loan. He approved it because I called him. I asked him to give you a chance. He did. Your first 3 clients, Harold was one of them. He signed on because I told him you were worth the risk. Your entire company, every deal you've ever made, every contract you've ever signed, has my fingerprints on it. Harold Vance stood up. Frank, I didn't know. I swear, I had no idea. I know you didn't. That was the point. Derek was crying now. Not the quiet, dignified tears of a man accepting defeat. Ugly tears. The kind that came from a place deeper than anger. The kind that came from the sudden, shocking realization that the story you'd told yourself your whole life was a lie. You could have told me, he said. All those years. All those dinners. Every time I talked down to you about money, about success, about making something of yourself. You could have said something. But you didn't. No, I said. I didn't. Why? Because I was waiting. For what? For you to ask. I looked at him. At my son. At the man I'd spent 40 years trying to save from himself. I was waiting for you to sit down across from me and say, Dad, who are you really? But you never did. You never asked. Because you didn't care who I was. You only cared about how I made you feel. He went quiet. You were so focused on being better than me that you never stopped to wonder if I was worth being better than. You never stopped to ask the question. I paused. And now you know. I walked to the door. There was nothing else to say. I'd said everything, Dad. His voice came from behind me. Small. Broken. Please don't go. I stopped. I didn't turn around. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please. We can fix this. We can fix what? Everything. The company. Our relationship. I can change. I can be better. I turned then. I looked at him one last time. Son, you wanted to humiliate me tonight. You set this whole thing up. The 12 chairs. The folder. The people. You wanted to watch me break. And I didn't break. I stood up. I told the truth. And now you're the one who's broken. I opened the door. Dad, you wanted to know who I really am. Now you know. But here's the part you still don't understand. I looked back over my shoulder. I'm not your enemy, Derek. I never was. You were fighting a ghost. And tonight, you finally realized that ghost was you. I walked out into the dark. The door clicked shut behind me. That the night air was cold. I wrapped my jacket around myself and walked down the long driveway. Past the expensive cars. Past the manicured hedges. Past the life my son had built with the money I'd given him. My old Toyota was parked at the end of the driveway. It started on the 3rd try. The engine rattled, but it ran. As I pulled away, I saw a movement in the front window. Derek was standing there, watching me go. His face was pressed against the glass. He was crying. I could see it even from a distance. I drove home in silence. When I got to my apartment, I sat down at the kitchen table. The same table I'd had for 30 years. The same view of the same parking lot. The same life I'd chosen because I didn't need anything else. My phone buzzed. A text from Neil. Harold called. He wants to meet tomorrow. He says the deal can go through without Derek. Are you interested? I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed, I'll think about it. And I meant it because the truth was, I wasn't done with my son. I was just done pretending that he'd set a trap to humiliate me. He'd planned it for months. He'd invited the most powerful people in his life to watch me fall. But he didn't know who I was. And now he did. The morning after the dinner, I woke up at 5:30 like I always did. My back hurt. My knees popped when I stood up. The same routine for 20 years since I left the life behind. I made coffee in the same stained mug, sat at the same wobbly table, and watched the same gray light creep through the same dirty window. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself remember. I remembered the day Derek was born. The nurse handed him to me, all wrapped in a white blanket, his face scrunched up like a fist. I held him like he was made of glass. I was 26 years old, and I had killed men. I had watched friends die in places whose names I couldn't speak aloud. But holding that little boy, I was terrified. I had never been so scared in my life that I promised myself that night that he would never know the things I'd done. He would grow up normal. He would have a normal father who worked a normal job and came home at a normal time. He would never see the blood on my hands. He would never know the darkness I'd walked through. So I built a lie. A beautiful, loving lie. I told him I was a supply clerk. I told him I counted boxes. I told him I left the army because I wanted a quiet life. And he believed me. Why wouldn't he? I was his father. He trusted me. But somewhere along the way, the lie became a cage. I remembered the first time he looked at me with disappointment. He was 14. He'd brought home a report card with all A's except A, B in math. I told him I was proud of him. He looked at me like I was stupid. Dad, you don't understand, he said. I need straight A's if I want to get into a good college. You don't know anything about that. You were a clerk. I opened my mouth to correct him, to tell him about the classified briefings I'd attended, the foreign dignitaries I'd negotiated with, the strategies I'd helped formulate at levels he couldn't imagine. But I closed my mouth, and I nodded, and I said, You're right, son. I don't know much about that. I did it because I wanted him to feel smart. I wanted him to feel capable. I wanted him to believe in himself, even if he couldn't believe in me. That was the first time I let him win. And it became a pattern. Every time he threw my failure in my face, I smiled and nodded. Every time he talked down to me about money, about success, about the life I'd wasted, I let him. I let him because I thought it would make him stronger. I thought if he believed he'd risen above me, he'd push himself further. I was wrong. I remembered the Christmas when he was 22. He'd just graduated from college. He came home with a new girlfriend, Patricia. She wore expensive clothes and spoke with that clipped, educated accent that made me feel like a peasant in my own house. Frank, what do you do for a living? She'd asked me. I'm retired. I said, retired from what? I saw Derek's eyes flicker. He was embarrassed, ashamed. His father was a nobody, and this girl was going to find out that I was in the military. I said, supply clerk. I retired early. Supply clerk, she repeated. She said it the way you'd say janitor or dishwasher. Derek jumped in. Dad's been retired forever. He lives a simple life. Doesn't need much, right, Dad? He was trying to make it sound charming, quaint, like I was a lovable eccentric instead of a man who'd once commanded teams of operatives across 3 continents. I nodded. That's right. Simple life. That's all I need. That night, after Derek went to bed, I walked to the park and sat on a bench for 3 hours. I looked at the stars. I remembered a night in Afghanistan, 1989, when I'd led a team through a mountain pass under fire. The sky had been the same. The stars had been the same. But the man I was then had been so different. He'd had purpose. He'd had fired. The man on that bench was a ghost. I remembered Derek's wedding. The biggest day of his life. He didn't ask me to be his best man. He asked his college roommate. He didn't ask me to give a toast. He asked Patricia's father. I sat in the 3rd row, wearing a rented tuxedo that didn't fit, and watched my son marry into a world I didn't belong to. During the reception, I walked up to congratulate him. He was surrounded by people, important people, people with money and influence, people who looked at me and saw an old man in a poorly fitted tuxedo and wondered what I was doing there. Dad, he said, thanks for coming. You can grab some food at the buffet if you want. That was it. No hug, no embrace, just a polite dismissal. I didn't eat. I left after the cake. I drove home and sat in my apartment and wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. If hiding who I was had cost me my son, that I thought about telling him. I almost did 100 times. But every time I opened my mouth, I saw the pride in his eyes. The pride he had in his own accomplishments. The way he stood taller when he talked about his career. I told myself it was worth it. His happiness was worth my silence. But it wasn't silence. It was erasure. I was erasing myself, so he could shine. I remembered the first time he called me a burden. It was 3 years ago. His company had just had a record quarter. He'd bought a new house, a new car, and a new boat. He invited me over for dinner, and I made the mistake of asking him for help with my rent. Rent, he laughed. Dad, you live in a studio. How much can it possibly cost? It's not the cost, I said. I've had some unexpected expenses. Unexpected expenses, he repeated. What kind of expenses? You don't travel. You don't go out. You don't do anything. What expenses could you possibly have? I couldn't tell him the truth. That I'd sent money to the family of a man who died, saving my life, in 1991. That I'd been paying for his children's education for 20 years. That I'd donated to half a dozen veterans organizations. That I gave money to people whose names I'd never know because they'd been broken by the same world that had broken me. So I said nothing. And he wrote me a check. He wrote it with a smirk, like he was doing me a favor. I'll cover this month, he said. But Dad, you really need to get your finances in order. You're 70 years old. You can't keep living like this. I took the check. I thanked him. And I never cashed it. I put it in a drawer. A reminder of what I'd become. A reminder of what he thought of me. And then there was Patricia. She'd never liked me. Not from the first day Derek brought her home. She was polite, always polite, but I knew. I knew the way she looked at my clothes. The way she made sure I sat at the far end of the table during holidays. The way she never asked me about my life, because she didn't want to have to pretend to care. At a holiday dinner a few years back, she made a comment that cut deeper than any bullet. Frank, I just want you to know, Derek and I have been discussing your situation, she said. We've decided that if anything happens to you medically, we'll make sure you get the best care. But we also think it's important for you to have a plan. A plan, I repeated, a plan for your future. You're not getting any younger. We need to think about assisted living. Memory care. These things aren't cheap. Memory care. I had a memory that could still recite the coordinates of every mission I'd ever run. I could tell you the exact location of a supply cache in Bosnia, the code name of an operation in Peru, the last words of a man who died in my arms. But to Patricia, I was a man who needed memory care. I nodded. I'll think about it. And I did think about it. I thought about it while I lay awake that night. I thought about how much of my life I'd given away. Not money. Not time. Dignity. I'd given away my dignity so that my son could feel tall. But I kept that pattern. Year after year. Dinner after dinner. Holiday after holiday. I came to every event they invited me to, and I always brought something. Flowers for Patricia. Expensive wine for Derek. Wine he never drank, but loved to display. Small gifts for the grandchildren they never had. I was always on time. I was always polite. I was always the invisible father in the corner. And they let me be invisible. Until the night he set the trap. Now I sat in my apartment. The morning after, looking at the same gray walls. The same cracked mug. The same life I'd built around a lie. I took out my wallet and looked at the photo inside. Derek at 8 years old. He was wearing a little baseball cap and holding a trophy. He'd just won his first game. He was so proud. So happy. I'd taken that photo myself. I'd kept it for 36 years. I looked at the boy in the photo. And I thought about the man he'd become. Where did I lose you? I whispered to the empty room. The room didn't answer. I remembered the first time he'd made me cry. He was 21. He'd just gotten into a prestigious business school. He came home, bursting with excitement. Dad, I did it. I got accepted. I hugged him. I was crying. I was so proud. Let me see the letter, I said as he handed it to me. And as I read it, I noticed something. The tuition. It was astronomical. More than anything I'd ever seen. This is incredible, son. But how are you going to pay for it? His smile faltered. I was hoping you could help. I looked at him. The son I'd protected. The son I'd funded. The son I'd hidden my whole life from. I'll make some calls, I said. And I did. I called Marcus Webb. I transferred money from one of my accounts. I wrote a check that could have bought a house. I told Derek it came from a scholarship. And he believed me. Dad, I can't believe this, he'd said. This changes everything. This changes my whole life. I smiled. You deserve it, son. And I meant it. He did deserve it. He'd worked hard. He'd been determined. He'd never taken anything for granted. But he'd also never thanked me. Not once. Not for the tuition. Not for the car. Not for the first apartment. He just moved forward. Upward. Without a glance back, I shook my head, pushing the memories aside. It didn't matter now. None of it mattered. What mattered was what happened tonight. What mattered was that I'd finally told the truth. The phone buzzed again. Another text from Neil. Meeting is at 9 a.m. Harold says he wants the deal to go forward. With or without Derek. Your call. I stared at the screen. With or without Derek. What did I want? Did I want to save his company? Did I want to let him drown? He'd tried to humiliate me. He'd invited 12 people to watch me fall. He'd planned it like a military operation, and I'd taught him how. But he was still my son. The boy in the photo. The boy I'd held in the hospital. The boy I'd promised to protect from the darkness of my world. I typed back. I'll be there. Then I put the phone down and looked at my reflection in the window. It was time to stop hiding. It was time to stop erasing myself. It was time to decide who I was going to be for the rest of my life. Not the father who let his son walk all over him. Not the ghost who'd let himself be erased. Frank Sullivan. The man who'd built an empire in the shadows. And the man who was about to build something new. The meeting was at the Ritz-Carlton. I knew that before Neil told me. I knew because Harold Vance always held his power breakfasts there. The same corner table. The same waiter named Emilio who remembered everyone's order. The same silver coffee pots and white linen napkins that cost more than most people's weekly groceries. I walked in at 8:50. I wore the same jacket. The same brown corduroy with leather patches. I didn't dress up. I didn't need to. For the first time in decades, I didn't need to impress anyone. Neil was already there. He stood up when he saw me. His face was tight, professional, but I saw the worry behind his eyes. Frank, he said, extending his hand. Good to see you. Neil. I shook it. Is Harold here? He's running late. Traffic on the bridge. But he'll be here. He gestured to a chair. Sit down. I ordered you coffee. Black, right? I sat. You remembered. I remember everything about you, Frank. You made sure I did. He sat across from me and folded his hands on the table. We need to talk about Derek. I took a sip of the coffee. It was good. Strong. Real coffee, not the instant stuff I made at home. I figured we would. He called me last night. After you left. 14 times, Frank. He called 14 times. Neil shook his head. He was hysterical. Crying. Begging. Threatening. All of it. The man fell apart completely. Good. Neil blinked. Good. Maybe now he'll actually listen. Neil leaned back in his chair. You're really not going to give him an inch, are you, Neil? He invited 12 people to watch me be destroyed. He spent months gathering evidence of my failure. He planned this like an assassination. I took another sip. And I'm supposed to forgive him because he cried? I'm not saying forgive him. I'm saying, let me finish. I put the cup down. I've been forgiving him for 40 years. Every time he talked down to me. Every time he dismissed me. Every time he made me feel small so he could feel big. I forgave him because I thought it was the right thing to do. I thought love meant swallowing my pride. Neil was quiet. But last night, he showed me what he really thinks of me. Last night, he showed me that all the years of patience, all the years of silence, all the years of hiding who I really was, none of it meant anything to him. He saw me as a target, a weakness, something to be exploited. I leaned forward. So no, Neil, I'm not giving him an inch. I'm done giving him anything. The doors of the restaurant opened, and Harold Vance walked in. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, with silver hair and the kind of tan that came from Florida winters. He wore a navy suit that cost more than my car, and he walked with the confidence of a man who'd never been told no. Frank. He extended his hand. I'm sorry I'm late. The bridge was a parking lot. I shook his hand. Harold, thank you for coming. Thank you for agreeing to meet. He sat down next to Neil. I won't waste your time, so I'll be direct. I want the deal to go through. I want it to go through even if Derek is no longer part of it. The words hung in the air. Even if Derek was no longer part of it. Explain. I said. Harold glanced at Neil, then back at me. I've done business with your son for 3 years. I've respected him. I've trusted him. But what I saw last night changed everything. He paused. The man who set that trap is not the man I want to do business with. The man who would humiliate his own father in front of colleagues. That man is not trustworthy. Harold, let me finish. He held up a hand. I invested in Derek's company because I believed in his vision, but I also believed in his character. And last night, I found out that his character was a lie. The company succeeded because of you, Frank. The vision was yours. The funding was yours. The connections were yours. I said nothing. I'm offering you a seat at the table, Harold said. Your own seat. Not Derek's. Yours. I want you to take over the project. Bring your own team. If you need to, clean house. I don't care. I just want the project to succeed. Neil was nodding. Frank, this is a good offer. Better than good. It's a reset. You can step out of the shadows and take what's yours. I looked at them. Two men who'd seen me at my worst. Two men who now saw me at my strongest. I need to think about it. I said, there's no time, Harold said. The deal closes in 2 weeks. If I don't have a point person by Monday, the Chinese partners are going to walk. And if they walk, the deal dies. I finished. I know. I reached for my coffee. My hand was steady. It always was. Old habits. What about Derek? I asked. What happens to him? Harold's expression tightened. If I'm being honest, Frank, I don't care what happens to him. But if you're asking about his company, he shook his head. Without this merger, he's done. The company has been overextended. He was counting on this deal to stay solvent. If it falls through, he'll have to declare bankruptcy within 6 months. Maybe sooner. And if I take over the deal, Harold spread his hands. Then Derek's company becomes a secondary partner. Or it gets acquired. Or it gets dissolved. That part is up to you. I sat back in my chair. The coffee was cooling. The silver pot was gleaming under the lights. The white linen was spotless. Everything in this room was perfect. Exactly the way Harold Vance liked it. I thought about Derek. About the boy in the photo. About the man who'd spent months planning my destruction. Neil. I said, call Marcus Webb. I want a meeting with him today. And I want a full audit of Derek's company. Every account. Every transaction. Every debt. I want to know exactly how deep the hole is. Neil took out his phone. I'll make the calls. And Harold, I said, turning to him, I'll take the seat. But I have conditions. Harold nodded. Name them. First, I want to bring in my own people. Men I trust. Men I've worked with before. You'll meet them. You'll approve them. But you won't interfere with their work. Agreed. Second, the deal gets restructured. I want a larger equity share. Not for me, for the trust. The trust that funded your company, Harold. I built that trust on relationships that took decades to cultivate. I want those relationships protected. Harold's eyes narrowed. He was a businessman. He was trying to calculate what I was asking. Go on, he said. Third, and this is non-negotiable. You never tell Derek about this conversation. He doesn't know I'm here. He doesn't know I'm taking over. As far as he's concerned, I walked away last night, and I'm not coming back. Neil looked up from his phone. Frank, that's what I need, I said. If Derek knows I'm involved, he'll fight it. He'll try to sabotage it. He'll burn everything down to prove he's in control. I've seen him do it before. I know my son. Harold was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. You have a deal, Frank. We shook hands. It was a firm handshake. The kind of handshake that sealed things. I left the Ritz-Carlton at 9:30. The sun was up now, bright and cold, reflecting off the glass towers of the city. I walked to my car and sat in the driver's seat for a long time. I thought about Derek. About the night before. About the folder he'd opened with such glee. About the way his face had crumbled when I told him the truth. Part of me felt sorry for him. Part of me remembered the boy who'd won that baseball trophy. Part of me remembered the father I'd been, the man who'd promised to protect his son from everything. But that father was gone now. He'd been erased, bit by bit, dinner by dinner, humiliation by humiliation. And I was done being erased. That afternoon, I went to see Marcus Webb. Marcus was a short man, round, with thick glasses and the kind of hands that never stopped moving. He'd been my banker for 25 years. He knew more about my finances than I did. He'd helped me structure the trust that funded Derek's company. He'd helped me hide my identity from my own son, Frank. He greeted me at the door of his office. I heard about the dinner. Neil told me. Of course he did. Come in, come in. He led me to a leather chair and sat down behind a desk that was covered in papers. What can I do for you? Audit, I said. Full audit of Derek's company. I need to know everything. Marcus put his glasses on. I already started. Neil called me this morning. I have preliminary numbers. He pulled a file from the stack. It's not pretty, Frank. Show me. He opened the file and spread out sheets of paper. Balance sheets, income statements, loan documents. The numbers jumped out at me. Big numbers. Red numbers. He's been over-leveraged for 18 months, Marcus said. He took on debt to fund expansion. He was counting on this merger to pay it off. Without the merger, he shook his head. He's in the hole for almost 12 million. 12 million. That's just the corporate debt. There's also personal debt. He mortgaged his house. He took out loans against his car. He even borrowed against his retirement account. Marcus looked at me. He was betting everything on this deal. I stared at the numbers. I'd given him everything. The money, the connections, the chance to build something real. And he'd gambled it all. Was he careless, I asked. Or was it something else? Marcus hesitated. I don't want to. Tell me. He sighed. From what I can see, Frank, it wasn't carelessness. It was desperation. He kept trying to prove something. To everyone. To himself. He was chasing validation. Every deal, every expansion, every loan. It was all to show the world he was a success. Even though he was building it on my money. Especially because he was building it on your money. I think he knew, Frank. I think part of him always knew. And he was terrified that someone would find out. I stood up. Thank you, Marcus. I'll be in touch. Frank. He stood too. What are you going to do? I looked at him. At the banker who'd kept my secrets for a quarter century. At the man who'd watched me build an empire from the shadows. I'm going to save my son, I said. Whether he wants to be saved or not. I walked out of Marcus's office and got in my car. I drove across town to the office of a man I hadn't seen in years. His name was Victor Reyes. He'd been my second in command for 10 years. He'd seen me at my best. He'd seen me at my worst. He'd watched me walk away from everything. And he'd never once asked me why. His office was in a warehouse on the south side of town. No sign on the door. No listing in the directory. You had to know it was there to find it. I knocked. A slot opened in the door. Eyes peered out. Frank, the voice was sharp. Surprised. It's me, Victor. I need to talk. The door unlocked. Victor stood in the doorway, gray-haired, scarred, wearing a leather vest over a flannel shirt. He looked older than the last time I'd seen him. We all did. Come in, he said. I was wondering when you'd show up. Victor's office looked like a war room. Maps on the walls. Photographs pinned to corkboards. File cabinets that had been through 3 decades of use. A laptop set open on the desk, glowing blue in the dim light. He closed it when I walked in. Sit, he said, gesturing to a metal chair. You want coffee? No. Beer? No. He sat down across from me and studied my face. You look tired, Frank. I am tired. Tired of hiding, I nodded. It's time, Victor. Time to stop pretending. He leaned back. I've been waiting for this conversation for 8 years. Ever since you walked away from the network. I knew you'd come back. It was just a matter of when. I'm not coming back to the network, I said. I'm done with that world. But I need your help. His eyebrow went up. What kind of help? Intelligence. Surveillance. Research. I need to know everything about my son's company. Not just the numbers, the people. Who he owes. Who he's crossed. Who might be waiting for him to fall. Victor studied me. You want to protect him. I want to save him from himself. He laughed. It was a dry sound, like gravel. You've been saving him from himself for 40 years. When does it end? When he finally learns the lesson. That's never going to happen. Victor shook his head. Frank, I've watched you for 20 years. You've carried that boy on your back since the day he was born. You gave him everything. You built a fortune in the shadows so he could shine in the light. You erased yourself so he could exist. And what did he do with it, Victor? He tried to destroy you. He planned it. He executed it. He invited 12 people to watch you burn. And you're still trying to save him. I said nothing. You're too good for this, Frank. That's always been your problem. You're too damn good. I looked at him. At the man who'd followed me into hell and back. At the scar on his forehead that he'd gotten covering my retreat in 1994. At the eyes that had seen more death than most soldiers saw in a lifetime. I'm not trying to save him because I think he deserves it, I said. I'm trying to save him because if I don't, he'll destroy himself. And I can't watch that happen. Not again. Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right. I'll help you. But you need to understand something. What? This isn't going to be clean. Your son isn't deep. The people he's dealing with, the investors, the partners, the lawyers, they're not going to just walk away. They're going to fight. And when they fight, they'll come for you. Let them. Victor smiled. It was a thin smile. The smile of a man who'd been waiting for a fight. I'll start tonight. I'll have a full report by tomorrow morning. I'll be here. He stood up and walked me to the door. Before I left, he put his hand on my shoulder. Frank, he said, it's good to have you back. I walked out into the cold afternoon air. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the pavement. I got in my car and sat there for a moment, staring at nothing. Victor was right. I'd been saving Derek for 40 years. And every time I saved him, I lost a little more of myself. I'd been so focused on protecting him that I'd forgotten to protect myself. And not anymore. The next morning, I drove back to Victor's office. He was already there, coffee in hand, a stack of papers on his desk. Have a seat, he said. You're going to want to be sitting down. Saturday. Victor opened the first file. Your son has been playing a dangerous game. He's been borrowing money from people who aren't banks, private lenders, offshore accounts, people who don't use contracts because they don't need to. They use leverage. Leverage how? Intimidation. Threats. The kind of people who break legs when payments are late. Your son has been running with a very dangerous crowd. He pushed a photograph across the desk. Recognize him? I picked up the photo. It was a man in his 40s, slicked back hair, wearing a suit that was too expensive for his face. I didn't recognize him. Who is he? His name is Dmitry Volkov. Russian. Runs a lending operation out of Miami. He's been funding Derek's expansion for the past 18 months. The interest rates are criminal. The terms are brutal. And your son is 3 months behind on his payments. I felt something cold settle in my chest. How much does he owe Volkov? $6 million. Principal. With interest and penalties, it's closer to $9 million. To a Russian lender who broke legs for a living, Volkov doesn't know about you. Victor continued. He thinks Derek is independent. He thinks the company is a solo operation. If he finds out about your involvement, he'll come after me, after everyone, after the company, after the deal. He'll burn it all down to get his money. Victor leaned forward. This is what I was warning you about. Your son didn't just make a bad bet. He made a deal with the devil. I put the photograph down. What's the deadline? 2 weeks. The same timeline as the merger. Volkov knows about the deal. He's been counting on it to pay off Derek's debt. If the merger falls through, Volkov will make an example out of him. And if the deal goes through, Victor shrugged. Then Volkov gets his money, and Derek is free. For now. But he'll still owe the banks. He'll still be over-leveraged. He'll still be one bad quarter away from collapse. I looked at the photo. At the face of the man who was holding a gun to my son's head. I need to meet with Volkov. Victor's eyes widened. Frank, that's a terrible idea. I'm not going to negotiate. I'm going to give him a choice. What kind of choice? I stood up. The kind where he walks away with what he's owed, or he walks away with nothing. The meeting was set for the next day. Volkov's office was in a high-rise in downtown Miami, all glass and chrome, the kind of place that screamed money in every language. I walked in wearing my corduroy jacket and felt the stares from the staff. I didn't care. His assistant led me into a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. The view was spectacular. The Biscayne Bay glittered in the afternoon sun. Volkov was behind the desk. He was bigger than the photograph suggested. Broader. Meaner. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored. His hair was oiled back. His hands were manicured. But I noticed his eyes. Flat. Empty. The eyes of a man who'd seen everything and felt nothing. Mr. Sullivan, he said. His accent was thick, the vowels rolling. I wasn't expecting you. I wasn't expecting to be here. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Please, sit down. I sat. He didn't offer me anything. Coffee. Water. Nothing. He wanted me to feel the power imbalance. Victor explained the situation, he said. Your son owes me money. A significant amount of money. I understand you want to negotiate on his behalf. I'm not here to negotiate. His smile flickered. No, I'm here to tell you that the merger is going through. You'll get your money. In full. On time. But you'll also get something else. And what would that be? Access. I leaned forward. My network. My connections. The people I know in places you can't reach. If you walk away from Derek and leave him alone, I'll open doors for you. Doors you didn't even know existed. Volkov studied me. He was trying to read me. Trying to decide if I was bluffing. Why would I trust you? Because I'm the man who built a network across 3 continents. Because I'm the man who toppled dictators and moved money in ways that would make your head spin. Because I'm the man you've been trying to find a way into for years. He was quiet. The clock on the wall ticked. A ship horn sounded in the distance, and if I don't accept this offer, I leaned back. Then I make one phone call. And every deal you've ever made in this country gets reviewed. Every loan, every transaction, every loophole you've exploited. I have friends at the FBI, Dimitri. I have friends at the Treasury. I have friends who would love nothing more than to take you apart. He stared at me. The flatness in his eyes was still there, but I saw something else underneath it. Calculation. He was weighing the risk. You're bluffing. Am I? I pulled out my phone. Let me show you something. I opened a file and slid the phone across the desk. On the screen was a document. A federal indictment. Pending. With Volkov's name on it, he read it. His face didn't change, but I saw his hand tighten on the edge of the desk. This is a draft, I said. It becomes final in 48 hours if I don't make a call. But if I do make that call, it disappears. Permanently. And you get your money. He looked up at me. For the first time, I saw something other than calculation in his eyes. Respect. Your son has no idea who you are. Does he? No, I said. He doesn't. Volkov laughed. It was a genuine laugh. Surprised. Amused. You're a dangerous man, Mr. Sullivan. I'm a father, I said. That's more dangerous. We shook hands. The deal was done. I left the building and called Neil. Volkov is handled, I said. Now I need you to do something else. What? I need you to file a restraining order against Derek. And I need you to freeze all his accounts. Personal. Corporate. Everything. Neil was silent for a moment. Frank, that will destroy him. He destroyed himself. I'm just making sure the debris doesn't hit me. I hung up and walked to my car. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and pink. Beautiful. I drove home. The phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Frank, please call me. Derek is in a bad place. We need to talk. I didn't answer. Another text. He's been drinking. He's talking about hurting himself. Please. I'm begging you. I didn't answer. Another text. Frank, please. He's your son. I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Then I put the phone down. It was time for Derek to learn what it felt like to hit bottom. The restraining order was filed the next morning. The accounts were frozen at noon. By 3 o'clock, Derek had been served at his office. Neil sent me a video from the security cameras. Derek standing in the lobby, the papers in his hand. His face drained of color. His hands shaking. He tried to call me. I let it go to voicemail. He tried again. I let it ring. He left a message. Dad, please. I know I messed up. I know I was wrong. But you can't do this. You can't take everything. Please. Just call me back. We can fix this. I deleted the message. Patricia called. Then her mother. Then Derek's business partner. They all left messages. They all begged. I deleted them all. That night, Victor called. Volkov got his money. The deal is moving forward. Harold is happy. Good. Frank, you need to know. Derek is in a bad way. He's been drinking all day. Patricia is scared. She's talking about taking him to the hospital. Let her. Victor was quiet. Then, you're really going to let him hit rock bottom. I'm going to let him hit the bottom so he can find his way back up. If he can. I hung up. I stared at the apartment walls. The same gray. The same cracks. The same life I'd built. But something was different now. The weight had lifted. The silence was no longer heavy. I was freed. The next day, I went to see Derek. I didn't call ahead. I didn't warn him. I just showed up at his house. The same house with the oak door and the brass knocker. The same house I'd walked into just a few days ago. I knocked. Patricia opened the door. She looked terrible. Hair unwashed. Eyes swollen. She'd been crying for days. Frank. She stepped back. Oh, Frank. Thank God. Is he here? She nodded. He's in the study. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. He's just been staring at the wall. I walked past her and down the hall. The study door was open. I looked inside. Derek was sitting in an armchair, staring at nothing. He was unshaven. His shirt was untucked. An empty glass sat on the table beside him. He looked up when I walked in. His eyes were red. Dead. Dad, he said. You came. I came, I said, to tell you one thing. He waited. I'm going to give you a choice. The same choice you never gave me. What choice? Surrender, I said. Or fight. He frowned. I don't understand. Your company is gone. The deal is done. Harold is moving forward without you. The banks are calling in your loans. Volkov got his money, but he's not your problem anymore. He's my problem now. Derek stared at me. You took everything. No. I walked toward him. I took back what I gave you. There's a difference. You never earned it. You never built it. You took it for granted, and you spent it trying to prove you were better than me. He looked down at his hands. They were shaking. You have two choices, I said. You can keep drinking. Keep blaming me. Keep destroying yourself. That's the easy choice. Or you can stand up, pick up the pieces, and start over. The hard way. The real way. How, he asked. I have nothing. You have your life. You have your mind. You have the skills I taught you, even if you didn't know I was teaching them. I leaned down and looked him in the eye. You have a father who's still willing to believe in you, even after everything. He was crying now. Ugly tears. He looked like a child, broken and desperate. I don't deserve that, he said. No, I said. You don't. But that doesn't matter. What matters is what you do now. He looked up at me. I saw it in his eyes. The flicker. The same flicker I'd seen when he was 8 years old. The spark of a boy who still believed he could win. What do I do? He asked. I straightened up. First, you get sober. Then you get a job. A real job. Not a CEO position. Not a corner office. Something honest. Something humble. You start at the bottom, and you earn your way up. He nodded slowly. And second, I said, you learn to live without my money. You learn to build something on your own. Not because I won't help you, because you need to know you can do it without me. And if I fail, then you fail. And you try again. And you keep trying until you get it right. I looked at him. That's what I did. That's what I've been doing my whole life. Derek stood up. He was unsteady on his feet. He looked like a man who'd been through a war. Because he had, Dad, he said, I'm sorry. For everything. For the dinner. For the trap. For all the years I treated you like nothing. I looked at him. My son. The boy in the photo. The man who'd tried to destroy me. I forgive you, I said. But that doesn't mean I'll forget. He nodded. I know. And it doesn't mean I'll give you back the money. That's gone. You burned that bridge when you lit the fire. I know. But it means I'll watch. I'll be there. I'll help you find your way back. I extended my hand. If you want it. He took my hand. His grip was weak. But it was there. Thank you, Dad. He said. I left the house. Patricia was standing in the hallway, crying. She reached for me. Frank, take care of him, I said. He's going to need you. Then I walked out the door. The oak door with the lion's head knocker. The same door I'd walked through a lifetime ago. I got in my car and drove away.